Alrighty. Perfect. Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Today, we are going to do an awesome Developer DAO workshop. Today, we're going to be covering a live application review for the PressStart and Developer DAO Fellowship Program. This is going to be a lot of amazing alpha because I really feel like some of the things that founders really hardly ever get is feedback on applications, whether it's Y Combinator, whether it's Techstars, or you're applying for funding, a new fellowship, anything like that. One of the most difficult things to get is feedback as to why you didn't get in. Why did you not get funding? And so at this point, I'm just honestly super excited to be here and to have my guests. My guests here, we have Ryan or Drop Knowledge from Developer DAO. And then we also have Steven and Luke from PressStart. And so this is something that is just, it's an amazing opportunity. Let's go ahead and just let them introduce themselves. Steven, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey guys. So I'm Steven. I'm one of the GPs at PressStart Capital. PressStart Capital, we are a Web3 entertainment early stage venture fund. So we're looking at anything from gaming, metaverse, liquid NFTs, IP, consumer creator, and we are an angel and pre-seed venture fund. So that's mostly where we play at. For these fellowships where we're partnering with Developer DAO, we tend to go a little bit broader beyond that category. So if you have an idea or project that is outside of the Web3 entertainment category, I encourage you to still apply. And as we shared on our previous Twitter spaces, every applicant, no matter whether is accepted or not, we will provide personalized feedback to every applicant. And part of that comes from our own experiences. All the partners at PressStart Capital, we're all former founders. So we've been there, we've been in your shoes. I've applied to various programs and heard nothing and just got a rejection letter and with no feedback or reasoning. So we kind of view like this fellowship as well as our overall fund as kind of like paying it back to the future founders and kind of helping the next generation of founders grow. So that's myself. I'll hand off to Luke.
All right, thanks, Stephen. So I'm Luke Xia, also one of the general partners at PressStart Capital. And I think, just a quick background around us. So both Steve and I, we've been in this space with, Bitcoin since 2013-14, with ETH and everything else since 16-17. So we've seen a few cycles. And we came together with another old friend of mine that I've known from before crypto, Spencer Yang, and his old hedge fund partner, Gerald Chi, to really form PressStart. I think, where we kind of are coming from with our thesis is having been through these cycles and seeing where things were last year, for the space to really grow from here, it's about mass scale adoption. And we think that, Web3 gaming, consumer, social, these use cases are some of the best ways to drive that, right? Because they can extract away a lot of the painful user experiences of making on-chain transactions, dealing with seed phrases, right? That things that, for example, our parents would never actually use, and still provide them with a lot of the benefits that crypto provides. And also, just to add, I think for us in terms of investing, we think about things in the full tech stack. So when we say Web3 entertainment, we're certainly investing a lot down at even the layer 1, layer 2 blockchain level, as well as tooling and infrastructure. So if you guys are building anything like that, definitely welcome you guys to apply.
Awesome. Go ahead, Ryan.
Hey everyone, I am Ryan at _dropknowledge on Twitter. So I am a steward here at Developer DAO. Been a member since back in 2021 and absolutely love my position getting to work with people here in the DAO. And my real initiative right now is to try and introduce entrepreneurship and give developers a chance to, turn that side project, that hackathon project into something more, right? And so I raised capital from venture capital before. Absolutely know that applying to fellowships, applying to Y Combinator, Techstars, all of these can be a real grind. And so I'm here to help, here to shine a little bit of light on what they may be looking for and just try and really extract the most value from your application so that we can put your best foot forward going forward. And so, yeah, that's me.
Excellent. I'll go ahead and finish up. My name is Patrick Skinner, and I've been a Developer DAO member for about a year and a half. I think that counts as an OG nowadays. It's all it really takes. But yeah, and a couple of things about my background is, I'm a former U.S. Army Special Operations Combat Medic, and that's kind of where a lot of my developer journey really started. I wanted to develop things that I felt like were missing when I was running like mass casualty coordination and things like that. So a lot of my initial startups were revolved around mass casualty coordination or other medical devices and things like that. And so I'm a two-time startup founder, and now I'm the guinea pig. So we're going to look at my application for the PressStart and Developer DAO fellowship and just go through it and rip it apart and see what are the good things, what are the bad things, what am I missing, and then also what am I maybe stating too much. Sometimes I feel like some applications just say too much, and you're just like, too long, didn't read, moving on, kind of thing. And so let's go through that. Any of you guys want to present or anything, just to show an application results or anything like that, or maybe even just go over the questions as for which question we want to review at that time and just give feedback on it?
Yeah,
absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. While you're doing that too, I think just a quick bio for our team and our partners. So we're alums of both, I think, kind of traditional tech. Steven was alum of Divx. If anyone's ever streamed torrents, they've used Steven software, as well as hundreds of millions of dollars movie streaming startup after that. I'm a consulting alum at McKinsey, worked across a variety of startups, Airbnb. And then Spencer, our venture partner, he actually led CoinMarketCap sale to Binance, then spent some time at Binance and also led product for Coinbase Wallet and the derivatives offerings while there. So I think, happy and excited to be giving some feedback.
Excellent. Ryan, did you want to present?
Yeah, just bringing up your application now.
Excellent. Okay, so in this case, let me go ahead and just cover some things that we're going to do with Developer DAO as well. If you are currently listening on Twitter, or if you are watching on YouTube, make sure that you stay for the entire workshop. And at the end, we will have a QR code that will allow you to mint kudos for basically partaking in the workshop. But also, just so you know, if you haven't applied yet for the first 100 applications that we have for this for this fellowship, we're going to give 400 code tokens to. And what that does is that grants you access to Developer DAO. So if you're not a Developer DAO member yet, we will make sure that you become Developer DAO members, whether you actually get accepted to the fellowship or not. And if you already are a Developer DAO member, we still will give you an additional 400 code token too. And that has a range of different things that you can use that for. A lot of times it's for voting, maybe some preferential access to some other features and things like that. So stick around, or if you haven't yet, apply. Make sure you apply so that you can get some of that code token. All right, Ryan, you ready to go?
Ready to go. Can you see
Excellent.
my screen?
There we go. I'll bring it up. All righty. There we go. All right. So let's start with the first question. Ryan, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think, obviously with this application, the first bit of information is just collecting name, email. Are you currently a member of Developer DAO? And again, like Patrick said, if you're within the first 100 applicants, that's going to be a yes eventually. And so then if yes, share your ETH. And then we just want to get to know you a little bit, right? And so understanding, who are we talking to? What application are we reading here? So bio, background, LinkedIn. And so if we look at Patrick's, I think we can jump into his. Mm-hmm. Then let's see. Let's jump into Patrick's here. Patrick Skinner, ex-paratrooper medic turned full stack engineer. Fantastic start. Very intriguing. Co-founder of AGAMI and Guardian, experienced in disaster relief, I saw the necessity for better warning systems and took action against human trafficking. Now at Guardian, I specialize in IoT and map UI development, right? So we're getting full picture here of who Patrick is. And then what we also want to stress here is if you have a team, then absolutely, bring in both members here, bring in your entire team. This isn't just for individuals to apply. This is for everyone. And so let's see, I can absolutely zoom in. So co-founder Tony is a former U.S. Army medical lab technician, earning a master's in computer and information technology, held a data engineer role, and created a YouTube channel for blockchain and Python tutorials. At Guardian, he focuses on resilient code for Web3 data streaming. And then Patrick and Tony, they included a intro video, and then also their LinkedIn, GitHub, and any personal websites. So I'll turn this over to Stephen and Luke. How does this first look?
Yeah, so I think first impressions, right? Like I think starting off with kind of like what makes you different, right? So obviously in the tech world, you don't see too many ex-paratroopers or special operations in the crypto tech world, right? So that's a great way to kind of make you stand out. Honestly, a lot of it comes down to like how do you stand out versus a lot of other applicants. So that's a great way to stand out. Start off with that. Hit us with that first. As Ryan mentioned, share the bios and information about your founding team. You don't have to do every person on your team if you have like a blown out team. I'll keep it to the founders. That's good enough. Obviously, they have the links here. And one thing I'll add is the Loom is great. Like having a video option is great for the same reasons as I mentioned before. It helps you stand out. It kind of cements you a little bit more in the minds of whoever's going through the applicants. Just put yourselves in their shoes, right? If they're going through dozens and dozens of applicants and only a few do videos, then the people who do the videos are going to stand out a little bit more. So just a little pro tip there. I'll hand off to Luke if there's anything you want to add.
Yeah, I think just to add a little bit, I think it's definitely, I think Patrick did a great job of telling just a quick life story, right, of both him and Tony. And I think really one of the big questions that we're thinking about as we go through these applications is, do we want to learn more, right? Do we want to have the interview and have a conversation? And I think, like in terms of what Patrick put here, definitely want to just talk to him just to, if nothing else, just to hear his journey of how he went from from being a paratrooper to being a full stack engineer.
Yeah. I'll add one more thing is like, some of the most important questions as we're reviewing applications is why you as a person or a founding team, and also why now, right? So keep that in mind when you guys are filling out these applications.
So let me just kind of respond to some of that feedback. One of the things that I think Luke said that I think really stands out to me is getting to the point and then also finding out, do we want to learn more? So I think a lot of founders, sometimes they just want to just throw in all the information so there are no questions. But in the reality of sense, it's like you kind of have to learn how to give a hook so that the people that are reading it are like, I do want to learn more. So you don't have to divulge all the information. You don't have to tell your life story on this. Like this shouldn't look like a novel at any point. You don't want to make it too long. You're trying to get to the understanding that yes, I'm applying and I want them to know all the pertinent information. But at the same time, I need to understand that sometimes I'm either one of 10 applications or I'm one of 10,000 applications. So I need to realize that when I'm applying, I need to be quick to the point and make sure that I leave enough information not said so that way I can understand that this person says, okay, this is interesting. I'm interested in learning more. So, I mean, do you guys want to reply to that at all?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point that your application is meant to tell a story, right? And so what is that story that you're trying to say? So you're introducing the characters here. You're giving context to, okay, what are they doing here? What brought them here? And then as we move on, you'll also see in this next application question, tell us about what you have shipped in the past. So again, you're applying more context to who exactly you are and giving a little bit of, again, context to, okay, who am I speaking with here? Even though that it's not the one-on-one yet, there will be an interview side of things, but who is it that is presenting their idea to me? And so I think exactly being concise and just focusing on what matters on your background, what focuses on, what's going to lead forward to Steven and Luke going, okay, I get why they're here. I get why they're the ones to build this.
Okay, excellent. So then let me just finish this question before we move on to the next question. On this question, is it too long, too short? Let's give it a score out of the judges. 1 out of 10. What do you score this response? Steven, you go first.
I would actually give this like a 9. I think for each founder, like 2-3 lines is good enough for each founder. You kind of hit on kind of like, you kind of mentioned like why you're interested, like, oh, you saw the necessity for better warning systems. So you're kind of touching into the why already. So that's helpful. And as I mentioned, you're providing the relevant links. The video is a bonus. It's not, if you don't have a video, like I understand not everyone's comfortable. That's totally fine. But if you do a video, it is like a nice bonus. So yeah, I would give this a 9.
Perfect. Ryan?
Yeah, 9 out of 10. I think it's concise, to the point, tells a good story.
Excellent. Luke?
Yeah, for me, I think I will give it an 8. In part, just so we're not giving all 9s, but I think, I think this was great. Like, I really like the length. I think the only thing I would maybe add is, I think some other work experiences, like once you turned a full stack engineer. I know it's probably, I'm sure it's in the LinkedIn, but I think it's just great to have it all here in one place.
Beautiful. Perfect. All right, let's move on to the next question. Ryan.
Great feedback. So next question is, what have you shipped in the past? And I'll just show that right here. Tell us what you've shipped in the past, right? And so Patrick goes in and says that mentioning something that he did post in his bio section as well, AGAMI. So authentication of physical products using patented NFC RFID chip tech called NOAA tags, shipped Guardian. And then I love this, gives context as to it was a first place streamer hackathon winner, and really amplifying, saying, look, this is something to take seriously, as well as transaction receipts through MailChain. And so I think I'll hand over to Steven and Luke, but I think that context around, hey, this is what I built and here's the value in it that someone else may have seen, fantastic.
Yeah, I'll kind of start with like the reasoning, like, what are we trying to get from this question? And so a lot of it is based on the thought process that, it's hard to predict what you will do in the future. And so the best signal is generally like what you've done in the past, right? So kind of like past actions is not a perfect, but it's a good indicator of what you'll do in the future. So that's the reasoning and rationale behind this question. And yeah, as far as Patrick's specific answers, the main thing I'll call out is showing the results, showing the impact. So first place hackathon, like bounty winner, whatever that is, whether it's traction numbers or whatever you feel is the most impressive for a particular project, like please do share it. Like this is your opportunity to show yourself and kind of just put it out there. Like don't be shy. I would strongly encourage everyone to kind of put that out there, just like what Patrick did.
Perfect. Luke, you have anything?
Yeah, and I think also for folks that that may be relatively new to crypto and Web3, don't be afraid to put your Web2 projects on here, right? And even if you worked at some of the big tech companies, feel free to put those in there. And then I would caveat that with saying, but you should definitely highlight what your specific contributions were to that. Because at the end of the day, it's about for example, if you're applying yourself, right, it's about like what you can build and not what you build in a team. But if it is a team context, then maybe highlight the team members' individual contributions on some of their, Web 2 or kind of, projects they contributed at in a team context.
Okay, here's a question for you. And I think this is probably, maybe everyone has this question, or maybe nobody. Maybe it's just me. But define shipped. Because when I think shipped, sometimes depending on who's asking or what the context is, I'm thinking of it's a startup and it's revenue generating or something like, or it's a working product, or it got shipped and it got shipped to a hackathon or something to that fact. Define shipped to me, so that way I understand in context what I should put in here, because I know not everybody has shipped something that's revenue generating. I know not everybody has an active live product that's working, actively at that moment. But I'm sure, quite a few people have shipped something to a hackathon or something like that. So define that for me.
Yeah, so I would say whoever your target user is, whether it's like end consumers, like if you're building a game, like gamers, or even if it's like say a B2B type of application, whoever that customer is, as long as you ship, when I think of ship, it means you got it in front of them, in front of your target customers. So sure, maybe it's on testnet or mainnet. Obviously, we kind of prefer mainnet, obviously. But even if you're on testnet, as long as it's like actually getting in front of your target user and you're able to collect feedback from them, to me, that's what I think of as shipping. Or maybe like a simpler example is Build Space. If you guys are familiar with them, they have this saying like "get the F off local," which I kind of like that. So that's maybe another way, maybe more developer centric way of thinking of it.
I like that. I like that saying. Okay, and Ryan, did you have anything on that?
I think maybe targeting, how many users came to this, even if it's just like a weekend project, or who it was for, echoing what Steven was saying, who was it for, who actually did use it, or if it didn't ship, why didn't it ship? Why did it fail? Things like that. What went wrong with it? Just any color that you can apply to the project that you did put out there.
Excellent. Okay, so yeah. I can see how this one may have not done so as well as the first question. So let's go ahead and go into scoring on this and some of the feedback. Scale of 1 to 10. Steven, go ahead.
I'll give it 8, and I'll say the only thing that might have made it gotten a higher score is to Ryan's point, like actual analytics, like whether that's revenue or users. Those are always nice. And then I think to tack on a little bit more to what Ryan was saying, like even if you had a project that maybe you didn't ship, or maybe you don't have like an award or whatever to talk about, or maybe the metrics aren't that great, like that's okay. Like maybe share like what was your biggest lesson from that, right? I think there's always something to be learned about these products, even if they may not get the traction that you were hoping for.
Perfect. Ryan?
Yeah, I think I'll give it a very friendly 6. I think that, having the name of the project and a link to it, or Guardian, very good starting point. But I don't have any more context as to what you were trying to accomplish with that, right? So what was the goal of shipping this? What was the idea behind it? And so I think, there's a lot to be desired, and I do want to learn more about these. I just would have to make my own assumptions on what you were trying to do, rather than you telling me, hey, here's what the problem we saw, here's the idea on why we built it, and here's what happened.
Excellent. Luke?
For me, I'm also going to give it a 6, and I think great points from both Steven and Ryan. I think the only thing to add on is in terms of, the KPIs, and kind of, I like to think about like what's the impact that you made, right? Kind of a little bit going back to my consulting days. But I think it's also not only highlight, like how many users you have, but also where it's going, right? Like what growth are you seeing? What's the trajectory? I think those are always great things to highlight if you have them. And then the other, I think for me too, like, when I think about shift, I think very simply just you put it into production, right? More than anything else, right? Because for example, if it's like a social company, you may not be directly driving revenue, but you may be increasing retention or something else.
Excellent. All right, that's great feedback. I mean, honestly, I think I took a lot away from this because now that I look at it, it's interesting to kind of see the results because you never really like see the results once you've submitted. But now that I'm like actually looking at it next to like all the answers and everything, I definitely see, okay, that's awesome. I love the idea of like the analytics and things like that. You know, and something I'm looking at now is on I very basically said what Agami is, but I said what the mail chain thing was, but I did not really say what Guardian was as far as like what does it do kind of thing. And I could have added a little bit of blurb on that. And analytics, man, I'm definitely writing that one down. That's some great feedback on that. Let's go to the next question.
So next question is, please describe what your idea or project does or will do in 100 words or less. And so let's see if, we can do a word counter as well, but Guardian is a decentralized system leveraging IoT for real-time air quality and seismic activity monitoring. It utilizes Raspberry Pi nodes with air and seismic sensors distributing data via streamer network. This community-driven solution empowers individuals and organizations to proactively respond to environmental changes, contributing to healthier and safer communities. So, fantastic description. I'll hand it over to Stephen and Luke, see if their first reactions to sort of understanding or reading this project description.
Cool. So yeah, I think again, I'll kind of start with the rationale behind the question. Like, obviously, we want to know what you do, and I totally get it. 100 words or less is pretty tough. I've been there before. It is tough, but part of the reasoning of kind of like forcing you to kind of try to keep it short is we want you to be able to like concisely communicate your idea, because this is like being able to concisely communicate is important for not only like investors, but even recruiting other team members, and of course sales, right? So that's kind of like part of the rationale and reasoning behind that. So I get it. 100 words or less is hard, but yeah, that's the thought process there. Initial reactions to Patrick's, I think the first two sentences basically state the what, and then the last sentence kind of like touches on the why a little bit. I would like to kind of hear a little bit more about the why. I think most of the time the what we could kind of like just look at it and kind of figure out. So the what is actually not that hard to figure out. A lot of times it's like the why or the benefit of your product is a lot harder to figure out. So the more you can kind of add there, I would say it's helpful. That's my initial feedback.
Yeah, I think for me, one way to think about this is, if a user comes to your site, right? How do you clearly and concisely communicate why they should use what you're building, right? So to add to Stephen, I think it's really about like what does the user get out of it, much more than how you built it, how you enabled it, and I think so really you really focus on like what are the benefits for the user, right? And what are things, for example, I think the other thing to really highlight is like what are things that they can do with what you're building that they couldn't do already, right, with the existing solutions.
Yeah. And then I think, again, a really good formula to kind of apply to any idea that you're presenting is, here's the problem that we discovered. Here's any solutions that exist, or if they don't exist, mention that. But if they do exist, here's what's wrong with them, right? Then here's our solution and here's why it's better, right? And so I think that's a very good way to say, hey, tee up a problem. Most people can understand a problem off the bat. And then giving the context around the environment, that means that your idea is going to blossom. Your idea is going to come out and really prosper in the current environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Like another way I think about it is like problem, complication, resolution, right? What's the problem? why is it hard, and why have other people solved it, and how you're solving it.
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing that on when I'm now reading this. I kind of realize from this side of the application, I realize I don't really explain that either this solution doesn't already exist, or what is the current solution now. How is this different? How is this going to be better than what's being done now? And who are we really targeting in this? What problem are we really solving? I just kind of really cover what it is, but I'm not really talking too much about the solution we're solving. And so I kind of realized that, and I'm like, okay, all right. So next time I'm doing an application like this, I need to understand this formula now. So yeah, definitely. So just to kind of repeat what you guys are saying, is it's really more about the solution you're solving, and then why your solution, the problem you're solving, and then why your solution to this problem is either better than what's out there now, or there is no solution to that problem, and you're now solving that problem. And so I really don't think I did a good job on this question, to be honest. I feel like I could have done a lot better job. So yeah, let's go to voting. Steven, go ahead. Hit me with the vote.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a 5 or 6 here. And I think it's kind of a very common mistake. Like, again, I've been there myself. When you're working on products, you kind of get so into the weeds, and that's kind of your mentality, and you focus on the what and the how. Whereas for something like this, in this application, or when you're talking to end customers, they really care more about the why and the benefits more than the what and the how, right? So I'll say try to lean more towards the what, the why, the benefits, the user benefits, and the why. And you could probably spend a little bit less time on the what and the how, because we can usually figure that out just from looking at your app.
Perfect. Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think giving a 5 as well. I think that one thing is that when someone is giving you money, they're not looking to become the expert. They're looking to trust you that you are the expert. And so you don't have to give the technical details or the exactly like how you're solving it, and for them to understand it and go, okay, now I could go out and build it myself. They're looking at, does this person understand the context so well that they understand the problem that they're trying to solve? And whether the solution is the answer or not, do they understand the problem, and are they married to that? And so I think that's what I would love to see here is, why is Patrick and why is Tony the team here to really tackle this problem? So
awesome. Luke, go ahead.
All right. I'm going to give it a 5 as well. And I think the one thing I want to add is quantify wherever possible, right? So the very easy way to state the problem is in one sentence is like, the whatever space is a whatever $1 billion market, right? And that's it. That's really all you have to say. Keep it short, right? Because as investors, right, we're looking for things that we're looking for projects that can scale, that's tackling a problem space that is big enough, right? It doesn't need to be mass. It doesn't need to be hundreds of billions or tens of billions, but it should probably, ideally be in the single digit billions, at least for like kind of the market, the area that you're tackling.
Perfect. Okay. So definitely 5s across the board. And I think one of the things I'm really kind of taking away from this too, and this might be something that I feel like happens a lot with Web3, is everybody spends so much time trying to explain what they're trying to build, because Web3 can be complicated. I mean, and especially when you're trying to explain it to somebody that isn't already kind of indoctrinated into the Web3 world. And so, yeah, I think being able to convey what you built, what solution you've created, and what problem you're solving in 100 words or less is probably pretty important. And so, I love that feedback. Let's go to the next question.
All right, next question is demo project. So you did provide one. I opened the link up here. And so Birth of Guardian, you have feature project, Air Guardian, and then you also have the real-time earthquake monitoring. And so I guess my first question for Stephen and Luke, do they need to have a demo?
Not to apply. It's kind of like the video, right? Like if you have it, it's great. It gives us provides more context and information, but not required.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think, like something like this is fine, right? Or it's, the short blurb about it tells us about it. We can check out the actual project, link to GitHub as well. So this is great.
Excellent. So I think that's one of the biggest takeaways I want to give people in this moment is like, don't be disconcerted or dissuade from finishing the application just because you don't have something to fill in this field. Sometimes, and this is just kind of from my point of view, I feel like having a project available for display it doesn't necessarily say, oh, you're not good enough, you're not going to get in or anything like that. It more or less is just kind of like a temperature check as to where you are, how far along you are within the project. So is your project live? Is it not live? Is it something that's still in testnet? Is it something that is, I can check it out, but it's not, on mainnet or anything actively right now? What stage are you in? So sometimes if you just don't have a project link, that's okay. That's kind of the feedback I'm getting right now, correct?
100%. Yeah. And I think one thing I would add is like, it doesn't need to be fully polished. Like, like we understand like this fellowship is for people, going from 0 to 1. So, we're not expecting like a fully polished product or app, so honestly, a lot of times, like I kind of prefer the janky prototype. I feel like a lot of times you kind of like get into the essence of something when you're playing with a janky prototype as opposed to like a fully polished product. So yeah, don't let, if you have a janky prototype or if you don't have a fully polished product at the moment, don't let that dissuade you from applying.
Excellent. Luke, you have anything to end with that?
Yeah, I think just, like with how early we are investing, we're very much used to kind of spotting diamonds in the rough, right? Just to echo Steven. So I think part of it is just, I think at the end of the day with the application, like we don't want you guys to spend hours on it, right? It should be pretty quick, maybe on the order of like, I don't know, like 10, 20 minutes, right? And hopefully it's actually helpful exercise for you to be a lot crisper in communicating what you're building.
Excellent. Okay. I don't think we really need to score this one because we don't necessarily need to do a deep dive into the project itself or anything. Let's just jump right into the next question.
Yeah. So next question, how many hours per week will you commit to this idea during the fellowship? And so I believe, Patrick, you put 20 hours. And real question here is, Stephen and Luke, how many hours are you looking for? What's the sort of commitment that you're looking for from a team, from an individual? What's going to stand out and what's going to go, okay, they're not taking this seriously, or, okay, you're not actually going to work 90 hours per week on this if you're one person?
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, we were originally planning to ask, like, just like, are you planning to work on this full time? But I think understanding just the way crypto is, like, a lot of people are working on projects on the side, so that's okay. So that's kind of why we changed it to like hours per week. And when we say hours per week, we mean it on like an individual basis. Um, for me, I would say like minimum 15, 20 hours a week. Just you want to know that you're taking it seriously. We understand sometimes people have other projects or they might have like another, day job, so to speak, or whatnot. So, willing to kind of give some flexibility there. But, at least in my mind, I would say minimum 15 hours, 15 to 20 hours per week kind of shows a certain level of commitment.
Excellent. Luke?
Yeah, same here.
Perfect. Okay. So I don't think we need to really score this too much. It's just understanding that you are committed to the project to some degree. You're not just going to kind of, I kind of agree with Steven. If you put 10 hours, you may not even get 10 hours in there. Putting in 10 hours kind of tells me I might get to it at some point when I'm not busy doing my other stuff. And I just feel like that's not really a true committal. 20 hours says, I'm going to commit some time to it every single day. That's where I feel like 20 hours is something that felt comfortable, while understanding like, hey, I got a job, or I've got other things that I'm doing. I got an income to be able to make. So I'm still going to commit to it. And this is my ideal committal for that. But, there's kind of a balance there. And so for me, I kind of feel like, if you're able to do full time, great. But it's, that's a difficult balance sometimes. So it's good to hear that 20 is an acceptable number. I don't think we really need to score this one then. We can go ahead and jump to the next question.
Yeah. So next question is, how far along are you?
Perfect.
And so you said the code base has been developed and tested. We need about $5,000 to develop physical prototypes and begin testing. We've been approved by Colombia's Natural Science Preservation Committee to mount a guardian node at the top of the Nevado del Ruiz, an active volcano in the heart of Colombia. Cool. To monitor the volcano's activity and potentially give early warning to the local populace of an imminent eruption. The expedition is an intense climb of 17,000 feet above sea level. We've received a commitment of $3,000 from Streamer to pay for flights and expedition members. The expedition is set to take part in late September of this year. Steven and Luke.
Steven take it.
Yeah. So again, starting with the rationale behind the question, we just kind of want to know roughly where you're at. So again, don't feel like you're going to be penalized if you're too early. Like, you won't be. This is more just like kind of like a rough frame of mind. So with that kind of rationale, for Patrick's specific answer, yeah, I mean, I like how he talked about how, like, what you need for the next stage. To me, that jumped out to me. Like, okay, so we need 5,000 to develop physical prototypes. Cool. Like, you have it tells us that you have a very clear roadmap in your head of like what you need to kind of progress and get to the next level. The case study in Colombia is great. It kind of shows that you have been out there talking to potential partners, maybe potential customers. So that's a great case study there. I think there's a couple details that are maybe like a little bit not as relevant, and I maybe like say the intense climb, like that's cool, but I think I would rather kind of hear a little bit more on like more kind of like customer like analytics type of metrics, right? So if you have it, I would actually replace that sentence with something like, I've talked to dozens of customers, or Colombia is our case study, but and I also have like another dozen that are in the pipeline. Something like that does a better job of answering the question of like where you are. But yeah, overall, not bad.
Luke?
Yeah, I think it has the right bones. I would almost, to Steven's point, kind of flip the focus. And so, I think the climb and kind of that story, that anecdote is great, but I would probably shorten that to kind of like probably 1 to 2 sentences. Talk a lot more about your roadmap, right? This is, it's great that this is, you're kind of in like the physical prototyping stage, but where do you go after that, right? And what's kind of your broader roadmap, and what are like the next few steps after this?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think that the fact that that you need about 5,000 to develop physical prototypes and begin testing. So what does that mean, right? And so what does the prototyping look like? How long will that take? Like Luke was saying with the roadmap there, what would you be doing with this money? And, in the next 6 weeks, like how far is that going to take you? What are you bound by physically and from, supply chain, things like that?
Excellent. Okay. So definitely from the feedback, get rid of the filler, be much more metric based, understand really down to, where you are at. genuinely at, and all the other extra information's nice and all, but we want a true measurement of where you're at, and not just, hey, this is cool and all, but yeah, let's find those numbers. So I love this feedback. Steven, scale of 1 to 10, what do you rate this one at?
Yeah, I give it a 6. And just to touch on your last point, Patrick, I think for this question is probably where you want to like bias and emphasize numbers more. I think in other questions, like the story is helpful for like, so like the who are you bio background question, that's probably where the filler or like your story is probably more appropriate. But for this particular question, I would bias more towards numbers. So you do have some, but I think, could be a little bit better. So
excellent. Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'll give you probably a 5 or a 6 as well. I think, what really would stand out here is sort of that plan, and I think also speaking with the Columbia Natural Science Preservation Committee, what was their agreement there, right? And so why were they intrigued by this idea, and what? Yeah, so I think that. And maybe it's the project itself that is tough to provide these metrics, because you're both dealing in physical hardware and you're dealing in a literal climbing of a mountain. And so metrics are a bit tough to provide. But I think for other projects, thinking about, hey, here is, you just spoke about where you deployed, and then here's sort of the users that have approached it. And it doesn't have to be a ton of users. It's more just, so what little traction do you even have? Has anyone used it? Have you posted it to live and you're literally sending it live tomorrow? Those kind of things. And so I think more for context for other people, just providing that sort of base layer. Here's where we're at, snapshot in time and view. I think it's tough to provide, but I would say, 5 or 6.
Perfect. Luke, go ahead.
I'm going to give it a 5. And I think, for basically all the reasons we already mentioned.
Excellent. Okay, so one of the things I think I really enjoyed hearing the feedback on is obviously the cool information, but let's get down to brass tacks. And this is a field that should be kind of pushed on that enough. And not every field of this application needs to have some sort of long story. Keep it concise and to the point. And so, yeah, definitely that's what it sounds like for this feedback. One of the things I think I feel like I could have done a little bit better on this one too is I stated that we're doing this thing with Columbia's Natural Science Preservation Committee, but it doesn't really say what's in it for them and what's in it for us. Like, what's the point of climbing a volcano? Yeah, you're giving possibly some early warning system to local populace and everything, but how does that help the business? And I feel like that might be kind of missing too. That would be also a decent value add, but at the same time, without telling too long of a story. And so there's a little bit of compression needed, a little bit more brass tacks numbers needed. So yeah, let's jump to the next question.
So next question is, why did you pick this idea to work on? Do you have domain expertise in the area? And how do you know people need what you're making? And jump into your answer. So the prevention of natural disasters is something that I hold strong value to due to my time as a mass casualty coordinator. I've seen firsthand the horrors that follow when a community isn't given sufficient warning about an incoming natural disaster. I began both of my journeys in Web3 and IoT development when I co-founded AGAMI in 2021. During that time, I developed many prototypes combining decentralized tech and NFC RFID chips. Stephen and Luke.
Yeah, so I think you do a pretty good job here. And this is where like who you are in your bio, kind of like you're kind of connecting your bio to this, right? And so this does a really good job of explaining like why you and why you're interested in this problem. You've actually dealt with this and seen this firsthand. So we'll always love love it when founders are kind of like scratching their own itch, or they're addressing a problem that they've seen before. That is always something that will kind of give you like bonus points, so to speak. Yeah, Luke.
Yeah, I really like the way you frame this, right? In that you're actually saving lives, right? I really love that. And I think the like where you kind of began your journey previously, that's really helpful to kind of like connect the threads. So yeah, I think this is great.
Yeah. I would also say adding something around how many natural disasters happen, what's the impact, the significance of a natural disaster when it does happen. And because then I think it provides a bit more clarity into exactly the impact that your solution could have as well. And so, I think we all have an idea of, oh, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, things like that, mass horrors, but we don't really have sort of the firsthand experience that you do as a mass casualty coordinator. And so I think providing a bit of color to that and letting us empathize with those individuals who you would be impacting through your product would be really nice.
Yeah. Okay. I definitely see like kind of the missing criteria there as far as like, quantifying the need in a sense, and also quantifying like, yes, I know about it, but kind of why do I know about it? Like, to what degree? So yeah, that's excellent advice. Let's go ahead. Scale of 1 to 10, Steven.
I'll give this like an 8 or 9. As I mentioned, I think you did a great job of connecting this to your bio. You obviously have firsthand domain experience. I think to Ryan's point, you could probably quantify both your previous experience, like, you've coordinated X number of missions to kind of demonstrate your experience and expertise, and then also quantifying the impact. So I would say those would be the only improvement areas.
Perfect. Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I would definitely say give it an 8. And I think maybe a note for anyone listening is that these don't have to be 100 characters or less, or 100 words or less. And so these are sections that you can provide a lot more color and context with, more storytelling, more, just a longer answer here. And so being concise still, but also saying, this is a big problem that might need a paragraph for everyone to really grasp. And so, yeah, but I think great answer.
Perfect. Luke, go ahead.
8 as well. Yeah, and just to add to what Ryan said, I think really, really highlight too why for you specifically, right? For you personally, it's a problem that you chose. So I think, again, Patrick, you do a great job of tying it back to kind of your bio, right? Your story. And I really enjoy that.
Perfect. So the things I think I'm kind of hearing here is like, obviously we've kind of hit that whole thing. It's like, you don't have to write a whole novel, but in this case, it may have been just slightly too short. As long as I could have probably added a little bit more, as long as the information was very clearly pertinent and it was doing a bit better of a job of just painting the picture and quantifying, what the need is and why me in this case, and you're really quantifying that. So that's, I'm definitely happy with the feedback, but I can see some points of improvement I can make. Let's jump to the next question.
Yeah. So next question is, how would you describe success at the end of the 6-week fellowship? And jumping into your answer, released 3 fully operable Guardian Node prototypes streaming data to a fully decentralized map UI deployed on Arweave, a series of content creation detailing the development of Guardian Nodes, our mission, and a countdown to the Nevado del Ruiz expedition, and all preparations made to begin fundraising.
Steven.
So again, the rationale. So I would say there's two reasons for this question. One is we want to know that you actually have some like rough milestones in your head, and you're not just like kind of coding and building just for the sake of building. Like you actually have like a rough idea. So that's one. And then 2 is we want to be able to have a rough sense of kind of like where you might end up at the end of the fellowship. Now, obviously at this stage, we're not going to hold you to it. Like we understand, we get it. Like things change. people pivot all the time. Like I pivot all the time when I'm building product, so I get it. But it's really more of just having like a rough sense. So yeah, so I think overall pretty good. You know, like at least 3 fully operational nodes. Yeah.
Excellent. Luke, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this definitely, checks the boxes, right? It's a very specific target, so really like that. You quantified it, and then yeah, I think it's also like there's like a couple of different ones and not just one. I would say though, I wouldn't generally go more than maybe 3-ish, just because at some point there's like too many there's too many, and it just shows it could indicate like a lack, or it could indicate difficulty in focusing. Let's put it that way, right? But yeah, I think otherwise is solid.
Excellent. Ryan.
Yeah. I have a question for Stephen and Luke. I'm curious because obviously 6 weeks sounds like a lot of time, but those 6 weeks will fly by, especially when starting a company. Do you see the advantage of being able to time box certain things, saying, hey, milestone 1, this is what we're going to do in the first 2 weeks. Milestone 2, this is what we'll do in the next 2. Milestone 3, the next 2. Or is it better to leave open for the unknowns and really just say, what are these end goals? What does that success look like?
For me, I think that's a case by case basis. I think it really depends on the project. It depends on you, the project, like how well you understand the market, like your current status. So it's kind of hard to give like one vanilla answer for everyone. I would say like use your best judgment as a founder. We kind of start off by saying like the question itself is actually like, what do you think you could accomplish at the end of 6 weeks? So definitely answer that question. And if you feel you have enough information to kind of time box within those 6 weeks, like this is what we want on week 2, this is what we want on week 4, like go for it. But for me, that's a personal decision. I think when we're looking at it, I don't think we have a strong preference either way, as long as you answer the original question. I'm curious to hear Luke's answer.
Yeah, I think it also depends on like what stage you're at, right? Because I think we'll get some people just maybe even still in the idea maze, right? And kind of have a couple different ideas that they're still deciding, which is totally fine. I mean, one of our Rockstar fellows from a previous cohort came in with 4 different ideas, right? And then by week 8, not only had he already narrowed down the idea, he already actually built the prototype, got his first customer, even started raising, right? And so there's a ton you can accomplish in that short amount of time. And I think, yeah, it's definitely not required to time box and kind of break it down even more. It just depends. If it makes sense for you, great, go for it.
Excellent. All right. So honestly, I feel like that's some excellent information. Definitely case by case situation. So let's go scale to 1 to 10. Stephen?
8. I think the first bullet point is kind of like the main thing. I think you could add more metrics for the second and third bullet point, but yeah, I think as long as you have the first one, that's pretty good.
Perfect. Ryan?
Yeah, I'll give it a 9. I think that, having at least 3 fully operable Guardian nodes, you're in the hardware business and you're in the node deployment business. And so I think the goal of having those deployed is, a great metric to have and a great garner of success, to go back to that question.
Excellent. And Luke?
9 as well. Yeah, I mean, also, Ryan, you just made me think back to like my hardware days at an EV startup and the Kickstarter startup. So I definitely remember how difficult it was to even have one working prototype. Yeah, so awesome. It'd be awesome to have 3.
Awesome. All right, man. I really love the feedback on this question. Let's jump to the next question.
Yeah, so this question is on KPIs. So what KPI will you use to track your progress each week? And you put out number of prototype iterations, number of streamer subscribers to Guardian node data streams, and number of DApp subscribers.
So again, I'll comment on the rationale of the question. So what we want to see here is that, the previous question was kind of like, are you thinking strategically? Like, do you have milestones? Do you have like a rough roadmap in your head? That was like the previous question. So this question is like, okay, do you actually have like a tactical plan? And so the main thing we want to see here is like, does your weekly KPI match up with your previous answer? And I would say in Patrick's answer, I would say yes. But yeah, that's the rationale. I hand over to Luke for actual comments on the answer.
Perfect, Luke.
Yeah, I think this definitely sounds like a great start for me. I'm trying to think in terms of, so first is kind of what you guys are doing. Second is in terms of it touches a bit on like the impact, right? And then number of DApp subscribers. Yeah, I think for me this checks all the boxes.
Perfect, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, no, again, I think knowing what you're building, having prototype iterations, streamer subscribers, I think that this is the first time coming across the concept of the streamer subscribers and the Guardian Node data streams. And so maybe a bit more color around that in the prior answers would then shine light on exactly why that metric is important to you. And then number of DApp subscribers as well, right? So again, thinking, okay, so there's a DApp involved now. I think one of the first times that we've seen really mention of that.
Perfect. Okay, so like, yeah, I definitely could have added just a little bit more content, just content as to how some of these KPIs work. But then I also like the answer of like, there is some sort of correlation between the KPIs and what you actually want to accomplish. And I feel like I honestly, when I answered this question, that wasn't in my mind. Making sure that those correlate wasn't necessarily in my mind. But I guess, I maybe in my sense of just being a founder, previously, like those really should be connected. Understanding what you're trying to accomplish should really be kind of correlated to your KPIs. And if they're not correlated, how are you going to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish without having KPIs set to accomplish those goals? So yeah, that I could definitely see the correlation. Excellent. Steven, scale of 1 to 10.
I'll give it a 9 for the reasons that you just mentioned. They correlate, they make sense. Your day-to-day actions are correlated with your strategic goal in the previous question. So 9 for me.
Perfect. Ryan.
Yeah, I'm just going to copy what Steven says at this point. 9.
Excellent. Luke.
I'm going to give it an 8 to Ryan's point about, just I think explaining the streamer part a bit more. And I think one thing I just kind of popped into my head is as you're filling out this application or, kind of future accelerator applications, right? You may want to just grab a friend and have them pretend like he knows nothing about your project and kind of go through each answer to see if it makes sense, right? Because I think for us, as we're looking at it, we're generally, we may have some background on some of the problem space, but for your specific project, we generally are seeing it for the first time, right? And I think this is also great for, when you do pitch investors, definitely practice a ton, right? Either just record it yourself or ideally practice it in front of someone and they can give you some feedback.
Perfect. Okay, let's jump to the next question.
Next question. I think we can tackle the next 2 or 3 all in one go. So have you formed a legal entity yet? And then have you taken any investment yet? And if you have taken investment, how much money have you raised and at what valuation? So I'll turn this over to Steven and Luke. So legal entity, is it required?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, correct. Not required. So these next few questions, they're purely just like informational questions. So if you don't have a legal entity yet, that's fine. You could still apply. We could actually help you guys with incorporation. So if you want to set up like a US based corporation, we will actually pay for that for you guys. So there's like low risk for you there. Offshore corporations, we're talking to our service provider right now about that. But we could definitely refer you at the very least to some lawyers and other vendors there. But yeah, so the short answer, if you don't have a corporation, that's okay. If you want a US corporation, we'll actually pay for you guys for it to set that up for you guys.
Awesome. And then when it comes to raising, so have they raised a round before? No is obviously the simplest, cleanest answer. What happens if they have raised money before?
Yeah, that's okay too. Again, this is like informational. So we just kind of want to know what the cap table looks like, right? So if the answer is yes, put yes. And then I think the following question asks basically at what valuation and whatnot.
Yeah. And then next question is time zone that you're in. Again, informational. And last but not least is optional, record a quick video under 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I think in Patrick's case, he kind of included the video already in the bio. So yeah, as mentioned before, a video can sometimes communicate a lot better and a lot easier. And the bonus points, it helps you stand out. So, again, purely optional. It does help. It will not be held against you if you don't do a video.
Okay, excellent. Luke, you have any additional input to that?
No, I think Steven's covered everything.
What's interesting that I just noticed too, and I think you guys may have not realized it, is those are two separate videos. And I guess I could have clarified that somehow, because video one, because this is kind of like a common question, is like introduce your introduce your founders. And that's like the first video I did was like, okay, it's just me and Tony in that case, me and Tony just going through like our intro of who we are and why we're working on Guardian. And then the second one is just like a demo and kind of like the storytelling of Guardian. So like, one's the 2-minute video of us, and the other one's a 2-minute video of like what Guardian is. And so I didn't clarify that. So I guess I get deducted points maybe for not really clarifying that. But yeah.
No, yeah, that's okay. I mean, I think it's really on us for not clarifying in the question. But I think a part of me is also kind of like, kind of leaving that up to you. If you want to show a demo, if you want to talk more about yourself, just kind of give you that flexibility to make that decision.
Okay, excellent. I think we'll end it with this. As far as this part of the review of the application, scale to 1 to 10 on the overall application. Steven.
I would say like 7.5, 7.8, somewhere around there. I think going back to what we said earlier, like at the end of the day, you're not trying to sell your entire thing in one go. It's basically like, do you want to move on to the next phase, which is interviews? That's basically what we're asking ourselves, like yes or no, interviews, yes or no, right? And we understand we're not going to get all the information all in one go. It's like dating, you're not going to get married on the first date. Like the goal is just to get the second date, right? So I think you did a good job there, and kind of what we mentioned earlier about a big way to kind of help us get to that yes no answer is why you and why now. So I think you did a great job on why you. So I would say the strength of that kind of carries you. The why now could probably add a little bit more information. So that's why I'm kind of like not giving you like a full 9 or 10.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I would give it a flat 7 just because I know how strong your application can be. I've heard, you explained this before. I've heard you give insight into winning this hackathon, what Guardian has the potential to do. And so I think that knowing the possibility, then I want to, give a score that reflects sort of what I felt was missing. in that. And so I think you have, a stronger leg to stand on. And so I'm looking forward to sort of your revised application to really put that best foot forward.
Okay, excellent. So, Luke, what's your review on this?
Yeah, I'm also a 7 with Ryan here. I think, yeah, I think everyone's already kind of given great guidance and feedback. And I think the only thing to maybe reiterate is, yeah, I think just adding kind of KPIs, metrics, right? Like quantifying it more would, I think, make it really pop. And then I think a lot of the things we mentioned earlier, it's like maybe focusing a bit more on things like the roadmap, on the benefits to users, right? That would really, I think, make it pop even more.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask this question. Let's see if this, and I'm gonna follow it up with another question too. Does this application make it to the short stack? Like, would this be the application? It's like, okay, this one we'll get this one in for interviews. I see some head nodding. Steven, yes or no?
For me, it's yes, based off the strength of YU, right? I think, as you mentioned, like the YU is really important. And I think to Luke's point, the why now can be strengthened with like some metrics. Yeah.
Excellent. Luke?
Yes, for me as well. Yeah, I think to echo Stephen, it's the YU, I think, really stands out, right? And then I want to actually hear more about the problem space, right? And why the existing solutions don't work.
Excellent. Ryan?
Absolutely not. No, get it off the pile.
I was waiting for that. Excellent. So, okay, let's. This is a question that me and Ryan kind of went over when him and I were kind of talking one-on-one. Let's say I got 2 projects. This one's a great project. I really enjoy this project. I built into it, but I also got this other project, and I'm also really kind of interested in possibly seeing, maybe they're more interested in this thing, especially because in this case, you guys come from a background of focusing on Web3 gaming, Web3 entertainment, but you've opened the doors to other things. Maybe my project is a little bit more, other project could be a little bit more in line with what you guys focus on. Am I allowed to do more than one application?
We actually thought about having like a what other ideas question you have. Like I think YC used to have that. I don't know if they still have that on their application.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we took it off just because we wanted a little bit more focus. But I guess at this point, yeah, I don't feel strongly either way. Like, yeah, feel free to just submit another one, is my take. I don't know. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, I think that may be easier. I mean, I guess it's 2 ways. One, you could try to submit multiple ideas within the same application, but then, in some of the fields, like the 100 word limit may constrain you, right? So if it's easier, yeah, just submit multiple apps, right? We'll know your intention with that. Yeah, so just, I think, do whichever way works for you.
Excellent. Ryan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, a good sign of an entrepreneur is that they're constantly discovering problems and looking to solve them. And so if you have multiple problems that you're trying to solve, then get after it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add one more thing. Like part of the rationale of this fellowship in general, that like the whole reason why we're doing fellowships is because, as we're working in Web3, like we noticed that a lot of builders have these like ideas sitting in the back of their mind. So like, we know it's kind of natural, like we do it ourselves. It's kind of like a requirement for people in Web3 to have like multiple side projects, it seems like. And so, yeah, there's nothing wrong with like having multiple ideas. So,
it's also interesting too, because I feel like we're also in this space where Web3 is at a kind of a pivotal point where you can build something that's brand new, or you could basically do like a Web3 arbitrage where it's an existing Web2 product, but you have figured out a way to make that work in a fashion that is user friendly, can maybe get some adoption, something like that, but in a Web3 format. And so, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for arbitrage right now where I feel like a lot of people, could be building something that already exists, but just kind of, we can overtake the market because it's now Web3 and it does XYZ a little bit better because it's Web3. And so you're kind of showcasing why some things are just simply better on Web3 side. So I feel like that's an opportunity too. The other point is too that I was thinking is like, what if you co-authored or co-built this one project with one person, but then you co-built something else with somebody else? And so, that I felt like was kind of a difficult thing to kind of show in a single application. It's like, well, I've done this with this guy here, but then this other project I did with this other person, and they have, we both have this use case where like, oh yeah, this is a great opportunity, and we also have great whys as to why we are building it. But then, we also have great reasons as to why we're building it with the other co-founder. So I feel like that was also a decent reason, opportunity as to why you might want to submit a couple applications. So any feedback on that?
Yeah, catching us on the spot. I think, just to kind of give some historical context. So like, we did this similar fellowship with Orange DAO before last Q4. And like the first season on the application, we did have that question, like, do you have other ideas? Which I think we just kind of took from the YC application. And I think we took that off for season 2 for Orange DAO, because I think part of it was like, that one question alone wasn't able kind of like generate enough substance to kind of really do it justice. And so I guess my take is like, if you do have multiple ideas and you feel strongly about the idea to kind of like do multiple applications, like go for it. If you don't feel strong enough about one of your ideas to do another application, then that's probably a signal, right?
Luke, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about what else to add. I think Stephen kind of covered the bases there. I think just be frank with where you are, right? If you're in the idea maze and you have 3-4 different ideas, totally fine, right? As mentioned, like one of our rock stars, that's where he was at the beginning of one of the previous fellowships, and he's doing incredible right now. So just be very transparent with where you are, and it's totally fine, right? Idea stage. Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel bad that you're in the idea stage. We all go through that. I mean, we have personal friends that have been in the idea stage for, idea stage and like idea maze for the better part of a year already, right? And they're gonna do amazing.
Excellent. Okay, so I would also like to add in, because I feel like this is Ryan and I kind of talked about this before. I think you want to cap yourself at like 2 applications, because for me, I'm thinking if you got like 6 applications in, that just kind of tells me you don't finish your projects. Like you jump around a lot, and you're really not committing to anything. And so because you're not really showing commitment, how do we know you're going to commit to the fellowship? So I feel like if you got 2 really, really strong ideas, then put in 2 applications. But if you got like the 6 ideas and you kind of halfway built into all 6, then I feel like you got commitment issues at that point. Thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, if you have more than like, I think 2 is a good number. If you start having like 3 or 4 or 5, 6, then like we're definitely going to start wondering like where your focus is, and are you going to be able to take this project to completion?
Okay. Luke?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I may be okay with a slightly higher number, like 3 to 4. It's probably my max. Just from what we've seen before, right? But I would say, definitely during the fellowship is time to kind of focus on one, really.
Okay. And Ryan, thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, you are trying to invest your time in something that will grow, that will become a company that you can focus on solely. And so I think doing that with ideas that you are bought into and that you believe in is definitely the first place to start. right? And so I wish I could buy into 6 ideas that I have, but really doubling down on 1 or 2 is the best way to sort of even confirm with yourself and give yourself confidence that this is what I want to solve. So
excellent. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here because I feel like we were like 20 minutes over time and everything, but I think we got some amazing information out of this. I really appreciate your guys' time and reviewing my application. We did have a few people are like, "Hey, review my application too," kind of thing. But I mean, the feedback was just amazing on it. I really hope everybody got something out of it. And I really want to encourage everybody to take that time and put in your application, no matter what phase you're in. If you're in the idea phase, fine. If you're somebody that's built out something and it's a fully working product, submit an application there too. There's a lot of incentives in doing the application, and there's really no harm done if you apply. And so by all means, if you apply and you do not get accepted, you're at least and you're one of the 100 that can get 400 code token. That gives you access into the DAO and a lot of other access to additional features and things like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing all kinds of new applications and everything after this. So if you have additional questions for myself, Stephen, Luke, or Ryan, feel free to put it in the comments below, and I'll be more than happy to make sure that we answer any questions following this video. Thank you guys so much, and I really appreciate your time. You guys have any closing comments before we log off?
Just quick note. Thank you, Patrick, for putting your application out there. That takes a lot of courage. So appreciate that. Yeah, thanks.
Excellent. Luke, any closing comments?
Yeah, I think definitely it can be tough with some of the feedback. So I think you took it like a champ. So really enjoyed the session. Thank you guys.
Excellent. And Ryan?
Yeah, just thank you to you. And then to anyone that also wants an application review, wants to run it by someone, see if the language applies. I'll have time over the next few days. And so I'll tweet out my Calendly with Developer Down, just so, grab some time. Let's run through your application, see if there's anything, that we can really sharpen.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. And I look forward to the fellowship. You guys have an excellent one.
Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You too. Thank you.